Greetings and salutations, everyone. Happy Tuesday? Is it? Is it Tuesday? I think it's a Tuesday. To another edition of the Rulebook Read-Along number. I don't even count numbers for these. I should do that. I should probably find out how many of these I've done. I want to say a bunch, but I know that's extraordinarily scientific. I don't have any particular notes. I don't think. We're here to talk about Blood and Gold today. Looks really cool. It's by Rodney Nedlows. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly. Well, I'm confident on the Rodney part, but Nedlows, hopefully that's all right. I'm just going to bring it on here. Let's just get this going. Let's get this patty started. One note that he sent me just a few minutes ago asked if I could mention that they're receiving proofs today. And if those are good, then later on they'll be able to turn on the soft cover print on demand, or maybe tomorrow at the latest on drive-through. So they're looking at proofs. If the proofs hold up, and I guess they're getting the proofs today, that means that if you like this and you wanted to get it on drive-through today or tomorrow, depending, it'll be available on print on demand. This is the digital PDF. I haven't, obviously he's barely taken a look at the actual print version, so obviously I haven't, but I have here some lovely PDFs which he was kind enough to send me. I'm not sure if all of these will be in part of a bundle on drive-through. He sent me a black and white and a color. This is the color one. The black and white one, I don't know if the art's exactly the same, but it's very cool, but obviously the content is the same. Let's get into it. Hopefully it's a good 60 plus pages long. Hopefully we'll be able to get through it in the hour. I'm going to try to be targeted on what I think is the most important stuff, but we'll see. We have the cover, which is pretty, and the credits. Blood and Gold is an adventure game for one facilitator, the referee, and at least one other player. Players act as hardened adventurers, exploring and adventuring in fantastical worlds as set forth by the referee. Reavers, thieves, and warlocks stalk the unknown areas, paying for power with blood and gold. Bum, 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 bum. So there we have that. I'm always thankful for references and such. So we have a quick reference to the rules. We have ability scores. We have getting 6 ability scores: strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. But they are pretty much what we think they would be, but there's a comment here that we may be some slight differences. Each player receives 4 points. Points are in quotes, to distribute among the ability scores, with no more than 3 points put into a single score. The ability scores and some common use cases are listed below. So you have strength for melee attacks, physical power, and lift capability. Dex for agility, reflexes, and defense. Constitution for fortitude, health, and stamina. Intelligence for knowledge, deductive logic, and arcane magic. Wisdom for wits, willpower, and ranged attacks. Oh, that's an interesting twist. And then charisma for personality, charm, and divine magic. So I guess the biggest twist here really is that wisdom helps with ranged attacks and charisma helps with divine magic. We also have luck points. Luck points measure luck that the gods or otherworldly powers bestow upon intrepid adventurers. Each player receives 1 luck point every session. When using a luck point, the player can add a d12 roll to any roll they choose. The referee may hand out more during the session for badass play. Only a single luck point can be held by a player at any given time. The thief class and halfling kin have special rules related to luck points that break these rules. So it's a bit like inspiration, though maybe it's used a little bit differently. So we're going to be, if we use it, we don't get advantage necessarily, but we could add a d12 roll. I do appreciate they're calling out that there are a couple of exceptions to this. Calling it out here, that way we'll know kind of going forward, or if we have to revisit this, it'll remind us that, oh yeah, if this is a thief or a halfling, and I guess potentially both, that they might have something different that we need to check out. Targets. Blood and Gold uses a universal mechanic. Roll a d20 plus modifiers against a target. Players should roll for most things. Referees should roll for actions that the players shouldn't know the exact outcome for. For a heroic game, set the base target to 12. If you like a gritty game, set the base target to 15. All player tests and saves are rolled against this base target. So we've got, okay, heroic game, set the base target to 12. If it's gritty, you're going to up it a little bit more. Interesting that everything's rolled against this base. It also doesn't seem to suggest that we're going to be modifying this base, but maybe we are. So it's basically a D20 system, but instead of target 20, we're given 2 targets that we could choose, depending on roughly setting what kind of difficulty we want for the game. Tests. Tests are the main role that players will be rolling. A test is used when an action is initiated by a character and is based on a specific ability score. Examples include swinging a sword at a goblin, strength, casting a spell, intelligence or charisma, or leaping over a ravine, which is dexterity. Tests are used by players and monsters and are always rolled against the target. All right, so that's the kind of the other half of this roll here. Let's see. So it doesn't say, I'm guessing that roll D20 plus mods, that these ability scores would be your mods, though it's not specifically said. I guess that's what I'm going to assume that's what it is. And that makes the most sense to me. There are 3 saves used in Blood and Gold. Saves are used when the character, creature, or item is rolling in reaction to something. Examples include diving for cover against a dragon's breath, reflex, fighting off poison, body, and attempting to shake off a charm spell, mind. Saves are derived from the ability scores and are equal as follows. So body is equal to strength plus constitution divided by 2, rounded up. Reflex is equal to dex plus intelligence divided by 2, rounded up. And then mind is equal to wisdom plus charisma divided by 2, rounded up. Which I guess would be the average, right? I guess that's essentially what it would be, right? Your average scores between those two. I think the nice thing here is there's no, at least in terms of the saves, there's no real dump stat because you're going to want to have decent scores in both. You know, if you've got 6 and 1, then your mind is going to be less than your wisdom if your wisdom was 6, kind of thing. Easy and hard. There will be times when a particular test or save will be easier or harder to accomplish based on circumstances, kin features, class features, or because the referee determines it to be so. Let it be so. Apply a modifier to the roll as follows. Easy, +4, hard, -4. Not too dissimilar from advantage and disadvantage, only these are capped. So you're getting rid of the luck factor there. Combat. Combat, when characters get to be badasses and kill monsters. Each character and monster gets to take a turn every round, which is about 6 seconds. Surprise. At the beginning of combat, if there is a chance of surprise determined by the referee, one player tests wisdom. On a failure, the party is surprised and they do not act during the first round. Initiative. Players roll 1d6 versus the referee. Winning side acts first. Turns. During a given turn, characters and monsters get to do one of the following: move far, move near and take an action, or decline to move and take an action. So that's an interesting system. I move far, I'm presuming, would be, I guess, your vanilla D&D equivalents would be moving your full movement, maybe even moving a double move like a run. I guess we'll have to see what far and near means. But if you take that double move or you're running, you know, you don't get to do anything else. You're just doing only that. Moving near probably would be equivalent to your regular move. I'm assuming potentially could be a half move, but for now I'm just going to assume it's kind of your regular move. So, for example, 30 feet per turn, you get to do that, and then you get to do something else. Or you do not move, and you just do something. Range and movement. In Blood and Gold, range and movement is abstracted to close, melee range, about 5 feet, near, distance that can be moved and still act around 30 feet, far, reachable with a run move, range attacks around 120 feet, and then distant, out of reach in a single round beyond 120 feet. Okay, so that's about what I was thinking. So basically, if you're trying to move that far range, you have to run, which just means you can only do that. Makes sense. Hit points. All characters and monsters have hit points. These abstractly represent luck, small nicks, and combat skills in avoiding deadlier blows. Any damage incurred is subtracted from a character's or monster's current HP total. Characters are limited to a maximum of 30 hit points. What do you start with? I don't think we've seen where you start with hit points yet, but I guess we'll get there in character creation. I'm curious if how they're going to ramp up. Is it going to be 30 hit points over 10 levels, or I wonder when we would expect it to reach that max or close. And this is watered down apple cider for the working man, in case anyone was curious. Dodge. A character's dodge score is equal to 11 plus the character's dex score. A shield gives a +2 dodge modifier. Monsters roll tests against a character's dodge score. So I don't see anything about armor, so that's interesting. I guess the only comment maybe I would say here, maybe this is good or maybe this is bad, but it seems like there's a clear advantage if you have a high dex and then give yourself a shield. That's kind of better than I suppose if you. I don't know. It just maybe I'm wondering. I guess I got to see what armor's like because I'm wondering if it puts a lot of advantage in the fast person with a shield as opposed to somebody heavily armored. But I'm not sure because we don't know what armor looks like yet. Melee/ranged. Characters test strength for melee attacks and test wisdom for ranged attacks against the target. If a monster's threat is easy or hard, then the referee will let the player know how to modify appropriately. On a successful test, the player then rolls the corresponding damage for their weapon. A natural 20 or beating the test by 10 equates to a critical hit, or a natural 1 or missing the test by 10 equates to a fumble. On a critical hit, roll damage for the attack normally and then double it. On a fumble, the weapon is either broken or lost somehow. When dropped to 0 hit points, characters are knocked out and roll 1d6 on the KO'd table on their next turn. Other than a result of 1, the character is then out of the combat. Any further damage will result in death. Just reaching for my glasses really quick. All right. I can actually read it fairly well without it, but just want to be sure. Resting. There are 2 types of rest. Catch a breath, a drink of water or wine. You get 1d4 hit points back. You can do that once a day. Or you could sleep in safety. Full heal, 6-hour sleep, roll a d6 and regain that many hit points once per day. Or full meal. So not full heal. Full meal, 6-hour sleep, roll a d6 and regain that many hit points. Interesting that it's only, the potential is only 2 more than just doing the catch a breath, though I suppose you can only, I guess you can only do both of them once per day. I might just say take a 6. Okay, we're on the table of contents. So that was just the quick reference. So having gone through the quick reference, I will probably breeze through some of that stuff in the main text since we just covered it. As I've mentioned before, I always like when rule books present some ideas of the concepts they're trying to do, their principles. So this is class-based. A character's role is broadly defined by their class. This defines mechanically what the character is capable of, not who they are. Death. Characters will run into situations that can and oftentimes will cause death. This is part of the game and adds to the emergent story of the game. Fiction first. Do not rely on what is listed on a character sheet or in a monster stat block, but rather think of what the fiction is asking of you in the current situation. Growth. Characters gain levels as they gain power and influence in the game world. They may also grow through learned abilities via questing. Neutrality. The ref is impartial, and their job is to adjudicate fairly and from a neutral stance. This is not a game of players versus referee. Player choice. Play centers around the referee providing enough context, including potential risk versus reward, for any potential actions the players will take in the game. The point, the referees and players are playing this game to watch a story emerge from the fiction and the results of the game procedures. And then finally, shared. Players are working together towards a shared objective, whether that be to defeat the evil overlord or grab as much treasure and run. The Dave loves their description of fiction first. Yes, that is nice. This is something that I almost would like it in handout form. You could hand out to the players. Potentially, this is definitely something if I was going to play this game, part of that session 0, part of that pitch that I'm going to give to the players is, hey, we're using these rules, and this pretty much would align with my own game running principles. So here's what we're on about. But it's good to know as a potential GM of the system, hey, this is what this game's about. So when you're reading through it, keep those things in mind and understand the decisions that we make trying to live up to these principles. On to the rules. I'm going to skip the intro. Rule number 1, by far the most important rule in this game is that the referee always has the right to modify the rules. What works for my taste will not always be the same for others, and referees are encouraged to leave out whatever they wish, substitute with other game mechanics, and hack away at this game. Make it your own. I've said before, we often, just about every modern, definitely OSR game system seems to have one of those disclaimers put in there. And sometimes I think it's kind of funny that we feel the need to put that in there, but I think often enough people need, especially newer folks to the hobby and to OSR in general, they almost need that little push of, oh, really? I can do that? And the answer is yes. You bought these rules. They're yours now. Do with them what you will. All right, I'm going to skip over the dice. I think we understand about polyhedral dice and how they work. We already went through the ability scores. We went through luck. We went through target. We went through tests. We went through all those stuff, so I can skip. we went through combat also. We didn't cover melee/ranged. So let's go through that. Characters test strength for melee attacks and test wisdom for ranged attacks against the target. This roll may be modified by circumstances using easy and hard, magic items, or the monster's threat. The character is attacking. If a monster's threat is easy or hard, then the referee will let the player know to modify appropriately. On a successful test, the player then rolls the corresponding damage for their weapon. If a character is wielding 2 one-handed weapons, the player rolls a single strength test, but then on a successful hit, they roll both weapon damages and keep the better result. A natural 20 or beating the test by 10 equates a critical hit. Okay, we did go through that. Okay, so that is some. So that's a little bit more than we got in the reference version. I still haven't seen where armor comes into play. Maybe there's not. It's interesting that we basically have these two things. It's either easy or hard. And if the threat is, I suppose, well, I guess there's easy and then normal and hard, right? So I guess there are three we can have just sort of regular, easy, and hard. And we're just going to be using those slots. And we're not worrying about, though I suppose we could, it's either, plus, the modifier is either 0 or it's +4 or -4. And then we're also telling the player that it's not something that we're keeping to ourselves. As it says right here, you let the player know so that they can modify. So you go, oh, this is easy, or you go, ooh, this is hard. Let's see, we do have I think this is the knockout table here. If you roll a 1, you're knocked out for D4 rounds, but then you get plus D4 hit points back. On a 2, you're concussed. All tests are hard for the rest of the session. On a 3, you've gotten a fracture. Strength/dex tests are hard for the rest of the session. You become disfigured. You're -1 charisma until healed, and you have a scar. You're maimed. You're -1 strength or dex permanently, and you're scarred. Or you're hemorrhaging. Death in D4 hours unless healed. So some interesting things in here. I would probably just have disfigured just be permanent like maimed. And maybe you can look for some kind of magical healing. But it's interesting. So they're making it a little bit easier because, well, if you get knocked out to 0 and you take any more damage, in other words, something comes to hit you again, you're dead. Assuming that doesn't happen, chances are pretty good you're not going to die. You only have a 15% chance that you're going to end up hemorrhaging. And still you have up to 4 hours until you heal, which is pretty good, though, if you're in we don't know how their timing works outside combat, but that's a pretty good chance that someone's going to be able to hopefully give you first aid or something. But having hard tests for the rest of the session, fractured, either have your sort of all tests or your physical tests or permanent -1s, it's tough. And we don't know if on level up, if you're going to get some of those back, or you're going to have to start drinking out of random fountains and wells to hope that you get one that raises an attribute back. So we did resting. So on to XP and training. Characters gain experience points as they adventure. Each level of experience is harder to attain than the last, and this is expressed with increasing amounts of XP needed to level up. Character may only ever gain a single level at a time. Any excess experience points are lost except for 10. I don't know what that means, except for 10. All right, maybe you can only have 10 over. So I'm guessing if you go 10 and you're in second level, you're 10, you needed 50 to go up to third level, but you got 100, you can only end up with 60, which would be 50 plus 10. Am I reading that correctly? Each encounter awards 1 to 4 experience points. Each 100 coins recovered from adventures awards 1 experience point. Each 100 coins spent on frivolous expenses awards 1 experience point. Surviving a session gets you 2, and then an MVP gets 5. So the only thing that it's intriguing about this, whether you like good or bad, is that it is putting a little bit more focus on encounter awards. And we don't know exactly what an encounter entails, but certainly combat would be 1. We don't know if you're supposed to roll 1d4, but 1 to 4 puts it more than your average for coins. So it's only in hundreds of coins. So if you end up finding 1,000 coins, that's still pretty good. But it is interesting, though I do like, we have basically, you get 2 rewards. So if you get 100 coins, you bring it back to the town. Just bring it back to the town is going to get you 1 experience point. Then if you go and you spend that money in the tavern buying drinks, not banking it for later, you can get one. So you can kind of double your coinage. You can kind of double your coinage by through not only finding it, but then finding it and spending it, you know. This gives you a nice tension. Do you want to bank this to actually do something productive with it later, like put down a down payment on a stronghold, or do you want to spend it and you're going to lose it, but you're going to get more experience points? I wonder if they're going to have any guidance on these three. Are we just using your standard OSR treasure tables for this? Do they mean something else? And then the same thing. What differentiates, and also what does an encounter mean? Is a trap an encounter? Is a friendly encounter? You meet some goblins, you talk to them, they go on their way. Do we get experience from that? Because that will kind of color, I think, as players, what you want to be aware of when you're going into things, whether sort of in, you know, your later editions of D&D where it just makes sense just to kill things for the experience, or if it means trying to find ways outside of combat because you're still going to get that 1 to 4 experience points. Let's see, Rodney. Hey, Rodney, the author. You gain 80 experience at level 2, and then you get 50 for level 3, and then keep 10 above for 60 total. Okay. I got you. And then the Dave says, frivolous is nice because if you spend the money on gear, you don't get the bonus, but the beer will get it for you. Yep. It's just, it makes a nice little tension there as a player. Yeah, like the Dave saying, do I get gear? Do I buy some healing potions that we need? Do I put a down payment on a little manor house, or do I get the experience points? You must choose. You can't get it all. So let's see. We also have training. Once a character reaches enough experience points to reach the next level, they must then seek out a trainer, a person that is of the same class as they are and at least one level higher than the character. The cost is usually a number of coins equal to 100 per level that the character is about to become. So to reach level 2, the character must spend 200 coins on a trainer that's at least level 2 in their class. So this kind of adds another wrinkle to the whole coins thing, because you need to keep some money to train, but then you may want to spend the money on your frivolous expenses. So we got a lot of push and pull on what to do with your money, which I like. Character creation. In the old school fashion, there are 4 classes a character can be: fighter, thief, priest, and magic user. Within each class, you will find 2 to 3 archetypes, which narrows the mechanical abilities a bit further for more customization. However, individual members of a certain class or archetype can come from many walks of life. Here are our steps for creating a character. We assign our points to our ability scores. We're going to choose our kin. We're going to note down any modifiers they may have. Then we're going to choose our class and archetype and keep noting down our modifiers. Then we get our 3 saves. Now let's see. We've got all our stuff. No ability can start higher than +4, regardless of abilities from kin or class. So kind of once so first you're assigning your ability scores and then you're choosing. So you're going to want to, I mean, you know, from a player standpoint, I'm not sure whether make more sense to work backwards from I want to be a halfling thief and then go that way, but just know that you can't get over +4. So it gives you a reason to want to spread things out. And given those saves and everything, you kind of want to spread out your attributes anyway. So next we're going to roll for starting hit points. That's going to come from your class hit die plus your constitution. We note our features: magic users and priests, starting spells, then equipment, then coin, then a background, and then grab some dice. All right. The Dave says, as a GM, I have the hardest time determining how much money to hand out and when to hand the money out. Yeah, I tend to just go with I just use some random treasure generators for that stuff, which is why I think it'll be interesting if they do have some guidance. Because depending on the versions of the treasure tables you use, some of them are more coin or just value rich. For instance, I think my party found in a random pouch I had them find, I think it was, 4,000 copper, 5,000 silver. So, 500 gold and, I don't know how 4,000 copper. I don't know how much that would be, like 40 gold. And then, so, between 500 and 600 gold pieces just in a little pouch. So if you're doing that, is that a lot or is that a little in a system like this? I suppose it's not that much in your average game. But given that I'm running a silver economy, regardless of the experience points being a lot or a little, it gives them kind of a pretty major bank for when they get to town. Though, of course, my party's been kicked out of the towns right now. So they got to figure out if they're going to spend that money somewhere, they're going to have to figure that out. But that's a story for another day. Rodney says, I made this game primarily to run old school modules that are gold for XP based typically, and if played correctly, those modules typically provide loads of treasure, I found. Yes, they definitely can do that. Kin, so we have humans. They roll their HP 2 times, and at every level and get to keep the better result every time. That's pretty cool. They get +1 to an ability score of their choice, and they get they win ties of initiative, which is cool. Elf, pointy ears, line the builds, forest dwelling fae. They get +1 to dex or intelligence. They can cast a single first level spell innately and gain 3 CP. I think that's, I'm gonna say that's not copper pieces, but that's casting points. And then we'll see what that means later. But if they are already playing a caster, then they can get it as a +3 bonus. And then they can cast, only elven magic users can cast arcane spells while wearing light or magical armor. We've got half elves. They have to choose 1 elven feature and 1 human feature. And then they're able to choose 1 more from either. So they can pick two features from one of their kindreds and 1 from the other, which I think is a cool way to do it. Dwarves, +1 strength. They don't lose direction underground, and they can detect slopes and types of stone without fail. They have easy saves against magic spells and effects. This is kind of like going back to the easy and hard and sort of normal. It is nice because you can just use the shorthand everywhere. Hey, their saves are easy. And then once you realize that easy is they get +4 or that the target's -4 or whatever it is, then it's like, okay, great. You know, it's very, very easy to remember. Very easy to remember, did I say? Oh ho ho. Small stature limits them to medium and small weapons only, but when wielding a medium weapon in 2 hands, the dwarf character benefits from D10 damage instead of D8. Further, armor must be crafted specifically for dwarves or modified in order for them to use it. Whoops. Halflings gain +1 dex and +1 or +1 constitution. They're lucky. They start each session with 2 luck points and receive 2 whenever you normally would get 1. They're short and small. They're limited to small and medium weapons, with medium weapons requiring 2 hands. And then they need armor to be specially crafted or modified for them. And then they're naturally stealthy, and they get easy tests whenever stealth is involved. Cool, cool, cool. On to characters. I like this. I like this drawing. The skull cave mouth. Character's class determines your skills and abilities. Bonus, all characters receive boons from the higher powers at each level. Individual classes detail how many a character will start with, as well as how many they receive each level. Each boon other than a roll of 6 is usable only 1 time and must be used prior to level up or it will be lost. Roll boons each level. So these are kind of once per level abilities, and if you don't use them, you lose them. So let's see, we've got gain divine luck, smite, shielded, enlightenment, I know a guy, and minor magic item. Minor magic item, we the referees determine what it is. I'm not sure. Gain divine luck uses to create some nigh impossible luck in your favor. Maybe that means that just some roll you would normally fail, you would succeed. I'm not sure what that means. Smite just gives you an auto critical. Shielded, you subtract d6 damage from 1 attack. Enlightenment, you know the absolute truth to anything. Well, that's a powerful one. And then I know a guy, you get to, it turns out a close contact is nearby and can provide help. All right, so the fighter, right, the muscly guy, D10 hit dice. They get a +1 to strength. They can use any weapon or armor. They add their current level to weapon damage. They get easy saves versus poison to death. They get 1 or 2 boons per level. And then they get some starting gear. On the archetypes, we have Horde Breaker. Wild warriors that are accustomed to fighting against great hordes of enemies. They gain one attack per level against foes of 2 HD or less at 1 to 6 levels, foes of 4 HD or less at 7th to 9th levels, and foes of 6 HD or less at 10th level. Slayer, these men and women have trained to stalk and kill a specific creature. Easy tests against one specific type of enemy. This includes any tests, including tracking, hunting, knowledge, etc. Battle specialists, these soldiers have trained in tactical combat and are able to perform maneuvers that others are not. They test strength normally to hit and roll a d4. If the d4 roll is 3 or 4, the battle specialist can inflict something extra with the attack. This could be a knockdown, a called shot, just about anything. Referee has final say. That reminds me of the, what's that? The stunt die a bit, though I don't think it works exactly the same, but basically they have a 50% chance of doing something extra. Cool, cool, cool. I definitely like the stuff for the fighter. I still want to know how armor works though. The thief, the specialist, the trap finder, and greedy bastard pilfering gold whilst his friend is leaping on down upon the dragon's back are all examples of the thief. All right, D6 hit die, +1 to dex. Use any weapon, only light armor, no shields. Oh, this is intriguing. So you can't be the really... I was wondering before if you could equip yourself with a shield and be super dodgy guy. Well, not if you're a thief, because thief, only light armor, but no shields. They add half their current level to weapon damage. They get an easy reflex save. They get 1 to 3 boons per level. They gain a luck point each morning and evening. No more than a single luck point at a time. Halflings are special and gain +1 in regards to normal thieves. That's cool. So the halflings still get their 2 anytime you get 1. And it even applies to this one where thieves get thieves get 2 luck points per day. And then we got some starting gear. The archetypes are the Delver, trained in dungeon delving and retrieving treasure. These men and women are a must for any group preparing to delve into the deep areas of the world. Easy tests for locks, traps, stealth, and perception. Assassin, these are killers for hire. They get, easy tests on stealth, disguise, locks, and climbing. When attacking, if the target is unaware that thieves' presence, max damage plus roll normally. Max damage plus roll 2 times at level 5 and higher. So it's essentially they get your backstab. And then a scouting type, a woodland guide, former military scouts and hunters. These folks are great when traversing the wilds of the world. Easy test for tracking, hunting, foraging, climbing, stealth, and perception. And they start with 10 supply instead of 5 supply. We don't know what those supplies are yet, but presumably it's things like food, maybe. We get the priest, holy warrior, inquisitor, hunter, witches, the mad exorcist, nature-loving witches, and druid cultists are all priests. So either you could be a witch hunter or a witch itself. Either way, you're a priest. Hit die, they get a D8, which is interesting. Oh, they get casting points. They start with a number of casting points equal to charisma times 3. Used to fuel divine magic, they gain 1d4 per level after first, a maximum of 30, regained after resting in safety. They get a +1 to charisma. They have easy saves against fear. They get up to 3 boons per level, and they get divine spell casting. Archetypes are the cleric. I'm just gonna go. They can turn unholy. They can incur disfavor potentially. They have they can potentially get divine intervention, and then they can use medium armor, shield, a holy weapon. Ooh, they got a bunch of stuff. So it's basically your cleric archetype. So this cleric is essentially your standard D&D cleric, more or less. The witch can use staves, daggers, long swords, short swords, light crossbows, darts, and slings. Only light armor, no shields. They can learn divine or arcane spells. They get a familiar. They can commune with the denizens of other planes. They can incur disfavor. And then they start with light armor and some robes and some other equipment. Oh, that was it. So there's really just... Okay, so there's just the 2 archetypes. Somehow I was thinking there might be a druid archetype in there. But I think that probably a witch probably works as that druid archetype. Or maybe you could just build one. We get the magic user now. They get a D6 hit die. They start casting points same, I think, as we saw with the priest. +1 intelligence. Your general same wizard limitations on equipment. Easy saves against magic and spell-like effects. They start with 4 boons, but they only get 1 to 3 afterward, after level 1. And then they get arcane spellcasting, and they start with some robes and stuff. And the archetypes, we have a mage. Gets arcane spells. They get a focus. They can create potions and scrolls, and they get access to runes. And then there's the warlock, which another one that can learn both arcane and divine spells. They get a patron, so similar to your 5th edition warlock, if you like that. They can also create potions and scrolls, and they get easy saves versus fear. And then Rodney says, looking to release an expanded supplement with more kin and archetypes sometime in the future. Cool. Yeah, I think you got a lot of room there for some things, but I like them. I've actually had similar ideas, Rodney, for mine. The ones that I thought out are a little bit differently than yours, but it's interesting to see people who come up with similar ideas and put them forth. Because I do like that idea of giving some folks some kind of specificity if they want it for their character. All right, gear, we're doing slots. 10 plus constitution. Everyone starts with a backpack, a belt pouch, a water skin, a bedroll, blanket, basic camping supplies, yada, yada, yada. First 6 slots are fast slots, usable as free actions in combat. Equipped items, if you will. And then those over 7, so 7 and beyond slots are packed, and it takes 1 action in combat to access. I've actually, I think, was it Lamentations of Flame Princess had the thing of it taking a good deal of time to get stuff out of your pack. I actually like that, but I keep forgetting to pull it out for my party. I find that people want to pull everything out of their pack in the middle of combat. And I liked in the Lamentations when I was playing a game or I was running a game using that, how it really made it a decision point of, okay, this stuff's happening in combat. I'm going to have to basically dump my pack on the floor. Stuff can get lost, rummage through and find something. I can't just magically just, just do like kind of like this and then it pulls out in your hand, right? I liked it being more of a sort of tension provoking decision. Ian says, I think I like the auto success divine intervention with the long time limit, but it's going to depend a lot on if your game has an adventure every other day in game or an adventure every month or so. Yeah, I mean, a lot. I think, Ian, I think that's true. I think a lot of, and it's not just in this rule set, but in really lots of rule sets. 5th edition, famously, if you're doing the one, if you get to do one encounter a day kind of thing, like, oh, we're going to take a long rest every encounter, then you just Nova everything, versus if you're going to force the party or try to force them to be more conservative. So yeah, I mean, definitely the cadence of of adventuring is going to have an impact on how these things play. Ian says they're running Worlds Without Number for the first time today with a pretty strict ready versus stowed inventory system. We went through the Worlds Without Number stuff, but just the campaign creation thing. So I did not look at their inventory system. I'll have to check it out. But yeah, I like it. I just think that it gets kind of, I don't know. I mean, I guess sometimes I am maybe a stickler for some sort of realism, but I don't know. I just like, what I do like about this is that you can pick some stuff that are like, hey, these are the things that are on my pouch or on my belt loop or somewhere that's ready. So I think what I'll do is I have to reread what Lamentations does, and I'll reread what Words Without Number. But just to bring it back to this, I do like that some of them says fast, so that as a player you can think about these are the things that I want at my ready, and then the other stuff's in the pack. And so now I get to make that decision. And it's not just a GM thing about, or in the moment of, well, where is it? And then you fumble around saying, I don't know where I did it. And so then I go, well, it must be in your pack. No, I'll let you write it out. You got these 6 things that you can kind of have on your character somewhere where they're attached to you with, I don't know, the fantasy equivalent of some kind of carabiner or, magic Velcro, whatever, that you can then toss to people or use, but then the rest of the stuff, yeah, that's in your bag. And so if you want to get out of your bag, now we got to work for it. Supply is an abstract way of purchasing backup items. It is used to replenish only those items you already had and cannot magically create an item you didn't have in your inventory prior. Each supply can be spent on replenishing at the following costs: 1 supply for rope, ammo, food, ink, iron spikes, oil, torches, parchment, 5 supply for caltrops and holy water, 10 supply for poison. Ooh, poison expensive. So I think the idea here is you buy rope and then you can just use your supply to have more rope. But if you ever run out of rope, you can't magically turn supply you had left into more rope. You have to go back and buy more rope. But that supply could then become more food if you had food. I've seen this before. I don't know if I saw this. I'm not sure, Rodney, if you ever posted some of the stuff when you were working on it in OSR, but I feel like I've seen something like that similar. Of course, there's lots of borrowing and cross-pollination, but I think it's a cool idea. So Ian says, going back to Worlds Without Number in their inventory, it's basically strength store, number of stowed items, half strength score, number of readied items, which include weapons and armor. Okay, cool. Supply is based on 5 torches deep. That's that one I haven't read, but I think I must have seen somebody else in the OSR space post something similar, because I definitely haven't read 5 torches deep, but I have seen that. Oh, here we go. Armor. Armor has an armor soak, and it is subtracted from any incoming physical damage. Armor takes up a number of slots equal to its armor soak. So light armor is a single slot, but heavy armor takes up 3 slots. Light, which includes leather armor, hide armor, and padded armor, has armor soak 1. Light and nimble, but doesn't help much when hit. Medium, for stuff like studded, scale, and chain, has 2 armor soak. Makes stealth tests hard. And then heavy, which would be plate and also heavy chain, has armor soak 3, but it's big and bulky and makes any dexterity tests hard. Shield is +2 dodge when applicable, and then you can have, they do have a shields maybe splintered type rule that can negate a single source of damage. And helms don't have any modifiers, but you can destroy it to negate a single critical hit. I like that. And then in weapons, I'm just gonna breeze through these. We have small, medium, large, and then we have some sample gear lists. I'm gonna pass over, but just know that they're here, and we just have a general coinage, so they're not doing separate gold, silver, platinum, copper, which is fine. We have common, rare, exotic. An accurate map is exotic. Yep. We should. I was just thinking, if an accurate map is exotic, I think, is there one that's an inaccurate map that could be common? Because kind of a funny thing is that people are selling maps everywhere, but they're horribly inaccurate, and it'd be fun. It'd be fun either as a player to see that list and think inaccurate map, but there's a chance because you don't know which part of it's inaccurate. So maybe you buy it on a lark and think, well, we're just going to explore, and hopefully this thing that's marking down as treasure on this map is the accurate part, but probably not, right? Or do you pony up for a map that is accurate? And we get hirelings. Yay for hirelings. Common, rare, and exotic for hirelings. No guidelines as to how many you can have or hire. I guess presumably you can hire as many as you can afford. All right, so where are we on time? 45 minutes. We got 15 minutes left, more or less. We get magic and spell casting. So I'm going to go over the spell casting and then the mishaps. I'm not going to go over all the spells. I think they're going to be hew fairly closely to at least versions of the spells we know and love. Rodney, if there is a particular spell or group of spells that you think, hey, I put a lot of time into this and they're really cool, then let me know and I'll jump in there. Something like the Lamentation Summon spell or anything that you think is super, super innovative. But to cast a spell, caster must first declare the casting level for the spell. This determines how powerful the spell will be and is used in determining the cost of the spell. Spells will declare if a save is available and which one to use if so. For magic users, the characters must make an intelligence test roll against 11 plus the casting level. Failure means no spell is cast and no cost is paid. If the intelligence test is equal to the casting level or lower, roll on the mishaps table below. For a gritty game, double the range. For priests, the character must make a charisma test against 11 plus the casting level. Failure means no spells cast and no cost is paid. If the charisma test, okay, basically the same as the before. If you roll it and you get below the level of disfavor, or sorry, if you roll under the casting level or lower, you get a level of disfavor, and then for a gritty range, you double the range for that. Gritty game, you double the range for that. Okay, so the Rodney says that the names are common, but they took a big inspiration from the Sharp Swords and Sinister Spells book. Okay, I haven't read that one yet. I gotta try to pick that one out. Find that one to read. Each spell has a cost that is paid before rolling the test. This cost is equal to 1 casting point per casting level declared when casting. Casters are able to continue casting after they've expended all of their casting points for the day. They may do so by using hit points instead of casting points. If a caster casts using hit points in this manner and drops to 0 hit points, they do not roll on the KO table. Instead, they are dead, but the spell automatically works at its maximum potential, i.e. max damage, no save, etc. Ooh, so you can kind of go Nova. If you want to go out, you can go out like a boss, rolling, go to some crazy spell and die. You die. I'm guessing you can't go above your... Are there limits? I'm just wondering... What do your character levels factor in here. So you have the casting level, right? How powerful the spell is. You're going to roll your intelligence test against that. But does your caster level come in anywhere? I guess it's just the amount of points you have. Yeah, Ronnie says limited to hit points and casting points. Okay. Learning spells. Casters are able to learn spells by finding them in books and scrolls as they adventure. They must spend 150 coins on the necessary ingredients to copy a spell into their book and make an intelligence test for magic users or a charisma test for priests. Failure means they must wait until they level up again to try and copy the spell. Ooh, so only once per level. As far as mishaps, you can be rebuked, 2 hours of no magic. You can be weary, 2 hours of no spell use. Oh, I see. No magic. The no magic one includes effects from gear. Weary, you can't cast spells, and that might even apply to spells cast on you, but your magic gear would still work. You can only move small amounts. Bolt, a random bolt of eldritch energy fires out in a random direction. Fear, you cry out in terror. You're unable to move for 1d4 hours. Singed, you lose a point of intelligence from an overload of visions from beyond. This point is regained after a night rest in safety. Disaster, you lose all your spells for 1 to 3 days. Destruction, you randomly choose and destroy 2 pieces of gear. I'm assuming it's yours. Magic user, your spell saved. Or your spell went happy. Your spell went bad. You got to roll the mishap. I rolled 7. Destruction. All right, what 2 pieces of gear are you going to destroy? I'm going to destroy that fighter's armor and shield. And then I go, sorry, man, it doesn't work that way. Mutated, get a hideous mutation. Wild magic, it goes off but at a random target. A vortex, oh, I like that one. A portal to another dimension opens. Anybody near it has to roll or get pulled in. Or you can get slimed. Magic goes off in a blast of slime that covers all near. Ooh, but it's like you have to make a strength test to move. And you get knocked unconscious and you're out for 1d6 hours or until awakened roughly. So there's everyone gets a chance to slap the magic user back awake. Brian Smith says, does the spell you cast determine the cause of death? And Rodney says, it's up to the nerve of the moment. So Brian Smith, we can say in our game, yes. So you could burn up in your fireball or whatever else is happening. All right, so we have some divine spells. Like I said, I'm going to skip the descriptions only just so try to get through as much as possible. Then we have some arcane spells. Now we're going, and now we get into the referees section. The following portion of this book is intended for the referee's eyes only. It contains game information that is relevant to the referee's role. You have been warned. So I guess spoilers ahead for referee stuff. Adventuring. Blood and Gold leaves a lot up to the referee, as is the old school way. The following rules are guidelines to help the referee adjudicate certain common situations impartially. So we get our reaction rolls. Exhaustion. Levels of exhaustion. I mean, that's kind of one of those. Is that the, I guess maybe a less heralded 5th edition thing is the levels of exhaustion mechanic? Because I want to say I don't remember seeing that before 5th edition came out, having levels of exhaustion. And it doesn't get all the talked about as much as the advantage disadvantage system, but it kind of is a nice, fairly neat mechanic. And I see a lot of things use it now. And I know I've looked at it to use it. But it's one of those almost sneaky, I don't want to say, is it an innovation? I don't know. But it kind of works pretty well. And I think, I want to say that's a 5th edition dealio. And Rodney says it is based on that, and it's a catch-all for conditions. Yeah, I like that. I like that. I like to use this kind of stuff also for sort of insanity and these other things. It works. It works. Get morale, encounters in time. The referee is free to use whatever method of encounters in time tracking they wish, but Blood and Gold provides the following guidelines. Feel free to let your group play free form when it makes sense and use the structures provided below when they are best suited. So combat, 6 to 10 seconds a round. Reroll initiative each round. The dungeon, 10-minute turns. With looks like kind of an overloaded dungeon die. You're going to roll a d6. 1, you get an encounter. 2, 3, you get a clue. 4 plus, you get nothing. I guess we roll that every 10-minute turn. Rest every 6 turns or gain a level of exhaustion, and then check light sources. I think you mean every 6th turn or once every 6 turns. I guess maybe that's what that means, but I could see someone interpreting that as rest on the 7th turn. But I think if you're going by the classic, which I imagine you are, it's you gotta rest on that 6th turn, once per hour, basically. And in the wild, 6-hour watches, rest every 4 watches or gain 1 level exhaustion. Consume a day's worth of food and water or gain 1 level exhaustion. Well, sounds good. You definitely, this makes it clear, you want to eat, you want to drink, and you want to rest every day. Otherwise, your exhaustion is going to go nuts. Ian says, advantage and legendary actions are the best mechanics in 5th edition. Legendary resistance is the worst. I'll take your word for it, Ian. I haven't, I mean, it's been so long since I've played or run 5th edition, but I've seen it on, at least in Reddit, at least in the, I guess, in the internet world, legendary resistances definitely seem to be a cause for dissension in the ranks, I guess, or a cause of confusion and irritation and things like that. You know, in 5th edition, you just end up being so involved with characters with mechanical abilities, and some of them either require or kind of strongly suggest knowing something about what they're going up against, and then that legendary resistances, depending on how the GM runs them, can kind of be a sort of a spanner in the works. Hey, if I'm going to use this reaction, don't I need to know whether you did this, or I should know because then it affects that, and you know, then it depends on kind of what your style is, and it's just a lot of. There probably is a better way to do it that maybe gets around some of that, but I think that's a problem, or that is a problem that comes up when you have lots of interlocking mechanics. And then you build in exceptions to those mechanics. And then when those exceptions, different mechanics, right? So you have one mechanic that relies on another mechanic and it's kind of an exception. But then there's this other thing on the other side. It's also an exception. So then how do these two exceptions do when they bump up against each other? It's a lot. Dave says, there's a better way. It is called a die roll. Very good. All right. So we got some monsters. Pretty cool. Just your, you know, banshees, basilisks, giant fire beetles, black puddings, blink dogs, bugbears. If you need them, you got them. Dragons, golems. For some reason, when I first saw it as flesh golem, I read it as fish golem, and I was kind of like, oh my gosh, what's a fish golem? I mean, I still kind of want to know what a fish golem is. Gorgons, some oozes, hydras, kobolds, medusas, kobolds. You went with the draconic kobold. I can't argue with that. The little dog yip yip kobolds are cool too, though. I'm kobold agnostic. They can be dog-like or draconic. Makes no difference to me. Wargs, zombies, vampires, purple worms. Nice. Pegasus, also nice. I'm going to get some magic items for you. Some potions. And, you know, I'm just kind of cruising through these because they're here. They're great. I appreciate them. But just in terms of time... But you do get a javelin of lightning. I always loved like the lightning weapons. I know I went through this whole phase, probably way too long, where I wanted the lightning bow from the D&D cartoon. I did end up getting at least one version of the lightning bow, which I appreciated. I really enjoyed that weapon. So you get a whole bunch of magic items, and then the OGL. And then we get another quick reference. Or is this a different quick reference? So yeah, this is not the same quick reference, so more quick reference. Hey, Rodney, I don't know if in the print version, but I wonder if in your PDFs to have one document that just has the quick reference stuff apart from the main books. That way someone could potentially print that out. Because you could kind of make you could make a screen out of it or just a little booklet so you could have all your references. I figure if you're just having it in kind of drive through in your bundle of PDFs, just throw an extra PDF in there with just the references. So we get our KO table again, and we get the advancement table, we get the magical mishap table. These are good because I think you would potentially access these quite a bit. And then we get a bit about the adventuring encounters in time, and then the common gear. And then we get the back of the book. Blood and Gold is an adventure game for one facilitator, the referee, and at least one other player. Players act as hardened adventurers exploring and adventuring in fantastical worlds as set forth by the referee. Reavers, thieves, and warlocks stalk the unknown areas, paying for power with blood and gold. One thing, Rodney, I noticed a couple times, I don't know if this is, you changed the verbiage here. So I get it. Lots of systems want to come up with their own word for dungeon master because they might want to avoid dungeon or master, or they want to do something else. So here you call it a facilitator, right? And you parenthetically call it the referee, but then down here you call it the referee instead of the facilitator. And then I know it's a couple other, at least one other spot in the book, and there's probably more where you refer to them as referees. And I think if you're going to go through the exercise of renaming it the facilitator, you probably want to be consistent everywhere and call it a facilitator, or just call it referees. I actually think referee is really good. Actually, facilitator is not bad, not a bad one either. I was just like referee because it has those connotations for me anyway, or the things that we want, the things like in your design goals of, hey, the referee is a neutral. What was the words you used there? Impartial, adjudicating fairly, and from a neutral stance, which is prime referee. But see here you call, I guess another example is here you call it referee, in the front you call it facilitator. The Dave says Dungeon Master is copywritten by Watsy. Is it really? Wow, I like referee better anyway, and they can't copyright that. I don't mind facilitator, but you probably just want to be consistent. Consistent wherever you go. Well, that was, I might roll up here, but that was Blood and Gold. I really dug it. I think there's a lot of cool things. I'm trying to think of the stuff that I liked the best, if I can think of anything. It's the divine magic using charisma is interesting. Kind of gets my mind thinking a little bit. Wisdom as for your ranged attacks, I can go with it. I'm not sure I make that leap, but it's a different way of doing it. I like the combination of dodging is kind of similar to your classic armor class, but then you also have that kind of armor soak, the damage reduction type of armor. I think there's a lot of helpful things in here. I appreciate that the rules are set up to be very supportive of theater of the mind, making the ranges close, near, far, and distant, which is great. And they have good fictional words. So someone can ask me, "Hey man, where are these goblins in relation to me?" You can say, "Yeah, they're far," or "Yeah, they're distant," or "No, they're near," or "They're close. They're about to hit you with clubs." And you can it functions both in just the fictional way that I can refer to them, but then also in the meta sense, we're looking at the rules. Same thing for easy and hard. Hey, you have a regular check, it can be easy or it can be hard. And then once you kind of get that down, someone can say, well, yeah, but I have an easy check towards poisons. Okay, subtract 4, add 4, however you want to do it, or vice versa. So those are very cool. I'll have to go through. I'll have to look at the spells. Seem interesting. The spell casting, I think, is interesting. It goes a little bit against the grain in terms of power level, because basically a first level magic user can cast the same thing as anything as a higher level. They just don't have as much spell points, which is interesting. It's not about access to the spells themselves. It's not even about the power level that they can cast. Granted, you're limited by, you can't cast like a 9th level spell if you're first level because you just don't have the casting points. But it's an interesting way of limiting it in as opposed to having something like a spell that's too powerful or too strong or too weird and arcane for, say, a novice spellcaster to learn. Like anybody can learn any spell, which is an interesting way of doing it. But I do like those limits. I like the idea that you could say to someone, hey, listen, you want to cast that, you can't. You can use hit points instead. I don't know if it says so, but if you can, but I would probably let players just combine their hit points and in other words, if they had six casting points and 4 hit points, I would let them cast something at level 10 if they wanted to go all the way and kill themselves. But good stuff. Well laid out. I didn't see any no horrible typos really came up. I don't want to say horrible, but no obvious typos, because usually I just can't help but ping on those. Let's see. The Dave says, so are the letters DM when referencing a game master, which I find annoying as my initials are DM. I did not know that, Dave, but yeah, that kind of stinks. But I mean, I guess I get it. Did anybody? I suppose they were able to get the copyrights. Like, I guess they were able to prove that nobody else was using Dungeon Master plus, instead of them. It's just one of those things. I mean, I saw an interesting discussion on whether using the term master in any sense. Some people that was putting that off. Other people were pointing out it's more like master of ceremonies kind of thing as opposed to dominion. But you know, like I said, I like referee. I don't even dislike everyone's customized name, but I just feel like they all get forgotten. You know, you say, oh, I'm going to call this person the Crypt Keeper, and something like, I don't know, Call Cthulhu or something else. But then, you know, does anyone go around other than maybe official materials and use Crypt Keeper? Or they say, I'm the Game Master or I'm the whatever, you know? So I don't know. Everyone wants their own name to take hold, but I don't know if anything's getting more famous or getting more used than Dungeon Master / Game Master. But Rodney, listen, I really appreciate passing it along. I mentioned this at the top, but I will mention it again if you like this. I have a link to Drive-Thru. Rodney is hopefully going to might already have in their possession proofs for a soft printed version, and if those go well, he will tick off the box or however it works on Drive-Thru to make those available. So within the next couple of days, there might be print-on-demand versions. I don't have one to look at. Obviously, Rodney's just getting to look at, so how could I have one? I cannot, so I can't comment on anything about that, but presuming it's probably be similar to other stuff from Drive-Thru, so it should be good to go on that. So if you liked it and you want to get it in soft copy, you can get that in a day or so. Otherwise, digitally, it's available on Drive-Thru. I don't know if when Rodney sent it to me, he sent me in black and white and color. I don't know if both those will be in the Drive-Thru bundle or if it's just the color version. But that's all there is to it. Anything else, Rodney? Is there anything you want to mention before I close up shop? Since I have you here, might as well go straight to the source. I definitely enjoyed the read-through. Thanks for sending it over to me. It is on itch, and the 3 PDFs come with it. Cool. So I will drag out the itch. If you prefer getting on itch, then Drive-Thru. I will put that in the show notes as soon as I'm done here. But thanks, Rodney, for hanging out. Thanks, everybody, for being here. Oh, yeah. So he said the 3 are color, black and white, and a printer-friendly version. Yep. There you go. All right, folks. Well, there you have it. That was Blood and Gold. Thanks, Rodney, for saying to me. I really enjoyed the read. Everyone else, have a great rest of your day, night, or whenever you end up watching or listening to this. Game on, and I'll talk to you later, everybody. Ciao.